Welcome to one and all to today's Monday, November 14th, 2022 Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. On behalf of the Pro Football Hall of Fame and the Board of Directors of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club, I call to order the 10th meeting of the 60th year of the Pro Football Hall of Fame Luncheon Club. Our invocation today, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance, will be given by Father King, Interim President of Stark County Catholic Schools. Father King.
Thank you. Let us pray. Most loving and gracious God, we ask you to look kindly upon us, as you always do. Enrich our lives by our presence here. Enrich our community by what we do for them. Bless the food we've shared and the people we love. We pray all this in your glorious name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our guests at the head table, to my right, your left, Club Trustee Jim Evans. And of course, you just heard from Father King. Thank you again. To my left, your right, our featured guest speaker, Brian Dwyer, and on it, it's Brian with an I. Just we occasionally get the wrong on the standard, and we wanted to correct that. Okay, so if you're Googling that or want to know things further from what he talked about today, you'll have to spell it right for it to search it out. Okay, and then next to Brian is he needs no introduction. You heard from him a few weeks ago as one of our featured speakers, but former minor league player and esteemed columnist and journalist Rob DeWolf. Over on the far corner in our media area, of course, our local Sam Berquin, and down here in front, TJ Downing with Stark Media. And of course, this is being broadcast, and you can tune in through your newsletter. Recognition of our corporate club sponsors to both screens to my left and right. AultCare's Primetime Health, Dr. Peter Ferguson, Wilkshire Golf Course, and Liberty Ford. We appreciate all of those sponsors so much. As I do every week, please turn off or silence all your cell phones or sound emitting devices. And announcing that tickets go on sale for the last time following today's meeting for our November 21st, next Monday's meeting is at the Pro Football Hall of Fame in the Nash Center. It is our second of 4 for this season, and they will be available at to the left of the main entrance until about 1:20. Right now, we have pre-sold 211 tickets, and hopefully we can get above the 235, 237, I believe we had actually attend our first one a month or so ago. Okay, so if you haven't bought them yet, and you're going to hear who the featured speaker is in the next couple moments, if that sways you any, please get your tickets ordered. It's the last opportunity. Club member hoodies. These guys right here. This is an Antigua. It's about a $90 sweatshirt. You're going to get it for $40, and it's not silk screened, and it's not plain like this one. It is going to be nice embroidered letters that stand out from the shirt. They sell it at the hall for $90. You're getting yours for $40, and it's going to be, instead of saying the hall, it will say the Club in big, huge letters that are outlined. And then it will have the embroidered Pro Football Hall of Fame logo right here. $40 for those. See Jim Mitchell in the back. He is taking orders through November 28th. So we are selling those today, next Monday at the hall, and the following week. They will be in, we are told, probably the first early January. Okay, so it's a rush order and they will have them. They are, you can try them on for size in the back. We have starting with mediums up through triple XLs, okay? So it's a heck of a deal for $40 if you'd like to add to your wardrobe. You can't get them any cheaper, I can tell you that. And it's a great gift. So if the wife's saying, well, what can I get you? Or husbands, you can say, that's a nice sweatshirt. I think I could be pretty warm in that over the winter time. Okay. Jim Mitchell also has back there the media guide. It's the history of our club, 76 pages full of color pictures, and every speaker through last year from the start of the club up through. And there has been some really unbelievable speakers that have come through here, including the one we're going to hear from today. Okay. Let's see. I don't want to miss my place here. And okay, got that. Our Veterans Day celebration will take place next week at the Hall and Ash Center, and the program will start earlier than our usual 12 noon. So next week, our start time will be 11:50 because we have some additional bios to read for the servicemen and or women that will be in attendance, and we want to do proper recognition for our service members. Next announcement, Hall of Fame, the Hall of Fame donated 2 tickets to the Browns Tampa Bay game, which will be held Sunday, the 27th. So that is Thanksgiving weekend. And the winner will be chosen from your meal tickets next week. Okay, so at the hall, they will pull one of your tickets. We have everybody's number recorded from when you bought your red ticket for next week. And so two tickets will be given out to one lucky winner. Okay? That's what I said. All right. Our club's up-to-date financial report is available from our treasurer, Tim Richards. Tim, would you stand up so that everyone would know you? And if you can't find him after the meeting, turn and face that way so they can see something other than the back of your head. Turn around. There you go. That's our treasurer. He's the money guy, and he's done an awesome job and continues to. So the financial report is available for anyone that would like a copy. Just see Tim, and he'll be glad to provide that to you. Club illness. I am unfortunately, I need to announce that a longtime member who sits right back here with John Brendis at his table, Don Moheim, is in Altman Hospital, and he is in the ICU currently with sepsis. So let's keep him in our prayers so that he can get back here to see us. Another announcement, 2023 calendars are being supplied and are available at the table as you come in the main door back there before you get to the place where you purchase. They're stacked up on a table back there. Please feel free to take one or several if you can use more than one back there. And AultCare Primetime is one of our corporate sponsors, and they are supplying those calendars free to you. Let's see. I got everything on the announcements page. Okay, we're on to the raffle tickets. So get out your tickets. There are two different rolls of tickets. So you guys and gals are buying well. The first 3 digits are either 545 or 670, okay? So pull those tickets out at this time and we'll tell you who the winner is. Today, it's worth $165, 165. And Wade Hostetler, our trustee here, raise your hand high so he can get to you with your winnings. I'll let Brian be the drawer. It's in here. Okay, reach in there and get one, Brian. We can put those back. Absolutely. Good man. Okay. Is that the winner? That's the winner. Okay. Well, if you have 670, you can throw that out. The winning ticket for today is 545826. 826 are the last three digits. Right there, right down here in front. Wade, you don't have to walk far. And Brian does accept donations. Brian does accept donations, you know, for pulling that ticket for you.
Just laughing at all my jokes.
All right. Next week's speaker, three-time NFL champion, two-time Pro Bowl champion, named to the NFL's 1960s All-Decade Team, a former, he didn't spend all his career, but most of his career, former Green Bay Packer and Pro Football Hall of Famer, Dave Robinson. We will get the treat of hearing Dave next week at the Hall. Without further ado, to introduce this week's featured speaker, Brian Dwyer is a longtime friend of his, former minor league player, someone you heard from 3 weeks ago, and as a journalist already introduced, Mr. Rob DeWolf. Rob, come on.
An update on the drawing for Browns tickets next week. There's actually two prizes. So first prize is 2 tickets. Second prize is 8 tickets. So you have
Are they yours?
So it took me 59 years to get to the podium, and now I'm here twice in 3 weeks. So I didn't really see that coming, but as always, I'm very happy to be here. And I am really happy to introduce Brian. I forget how young he is. He flew in last night to Columbus. We went out to eat, and he went back to his hotel, and I was making some notes. And I texted him and I said, "Hey, how long have we known each other? Like, I know it's been a while. Has it been like 20 years? Is that about right?" And he texted me back. He goes, "Well, 20 years ago, I was a sophomore in high school." So it's like, I forget how young he is and I forget how old I am. But that comes into play because being so young, he's the president and owner of Robert Edwards Auction House in Chester, New Jersey. And we'll probably refer to it as REA because that's how it's referred to in the hobby. And it's one of the 2 largest auction houses in the country that specializes in sports memorabilia and baseball cards. And I've been involved collecting cards like a lot of us probably have. I got started in like grade school, middle school, high school. I remember in 1977, I was a sophomore in high school. And if you know the Nazar Grotto rental hall on 6th Street, I think, had monthly card shows there that just started about that time. And myself and 2 friends of mine, we would go there every month and set up and sell baseball cards. And greatest thing in the world to do when you're a kid in high school. And I remember one month I bought a Ty Cobb card that came in a pack of cigarettes in the 1909 to 1911 era. and I paid $35 for it, which, 1977, you're a kid in high school. That's a pretty good chunk of change. And about 3 months later, I sold it for $60. And I pretty much thought I was it, making $25 in 3 months. Brian just had an auction. I should say all of their auctions are online. So it's not like a Kiko's auction where you go on Saturday morning and stand there in the cold. They're all online, but they sold one of those Cobb cards in pretty much the same condition that mine was in for nearly $16,000. So looking back, I probably realized it before, but not really the greatest move, even though it was in the late 70s, it's quite an appreciation. I've always looked at the hobby, or as baseball card collecting, is nothing more than a hobby. And it really is more than that. You'll probably hear Brian refer to it as an industry, because it really is. So when Brian went to work at Robert Edward Auctions in 2012, the auction company did pretty much one catalog auction a year. The size of their catalog, this is from last year, is about this size, which I'm guessing if they still did yellow, I don't know, do they still print the yellow pages? This is probably the size of maybe Alliance's yellow pages. And this is like one auction that they did. So when he went to work for REA in 2012, they did $9.5 million in sales of just baseball cards and sports memorabilia. He started there in 2012. He bought the company in 2016, became the owner and president. And this year, so 10 years after he went there, they will do $60 million in sales of baseball cards. I mean, it's like if I knew someone who did $60 million of sale on aluminum siding, I'd be like, well, yeah, people need aluminum siding. Baseball cards aren't aluminum siding. And so it's amazing to me what the hobby / industry has become, but also amazing to me that Brian has engineered and had vision for that type of growth. The final thing I want to say is, as you all know, like anytime there's money involved in any kind of industry or any kind of endeavor, it brings not the greatest character guys out of the woodwork to try to capitalize on that situation. I can tell you, having been involved in the hobby, since I was a teenager, and knowing REA and knowing Brian, that they're just the gold standard when it comes to this hobby and this industry. If you just ask anybody who is really active in the hobby and who deals with auction houses, and there are a lot of them, and goes to the major trade shows and the card shows, and you mention REA or you mention specifically Brian, I've yet to find someone who's had anything even negative to say about him. And when I left the Dispatch and took a buyout about 5 years ago, I wanted to still keep working in some capacity. And the only person I called was Brian, and we talked, and I said, hey, I'm a writer, I'm a decent editor in that. Is there any place like in your organization where I could, help you guys out and do some work? So it was fortunate for me that basically every auction or every catalog they put out, I'm the guy who goes through and proofreads it and copy edits it. And I can honestly tell you, there wouldn't really be anybody else in the industry that I would have wanted to work for than REA and Brian. And for those of you who know me, I can be a pretty cynical person. So I hope you realize those aren't light words when I say, I really admire this guy, value his friendship, and I just really look forward to the message he has today. So thank you. Brian Dwyer.
Thank you, Rob. I appreciate that. Just get my bearings here. Rob kind of took my joke. I was going to say I appraise stuff day in and day out, do it for a living, and I don't think I could actually, in good conscience, put a value of anything significant on those Browns tickets. So I hate to either. I hate to keep harping on the Browns, but it is what it is. So I appreciate Rob, obviously the introduction, and to Jim and RJ for coordinating my time here. Rob and I have known each other for a shockingly long time, given the fact that I am as old as I am. And Jim actually checked my license on the way in here because he was expecting a guy with glasses, but I went through some laser vision surgery, and I promise that the guy that you see on the screen is still me. So Rob and I, again, we've known each other now for about 15 years, 16 years maybe. And we've had kind of a standing tradition on Mondays when he makes the drive up here from Westerville and I'm driving to work in Chester, New Jersey, where we'll catch up with each other. And he's always been very positive and spoken very highly about this Luncheon Club and how much he enjoys coming and how much his dad enjoys coming. And I got to be honest with you, he didn't really paint me a very accurate picture of what I would be walking into today. Nothing size-wise and passion-wise. I mean, even just the people that I've spoken to in the hour or so that I've been floating around here, nothing really could have prepared me for that. So I would say that kudos obviously to the club, kudos to its leaders and its members for keeping this tradition alive and really putting on a great event week in and week out. I think it's really great what's going on here. And I feel at home because my parents actually live in Cooperstown, New York. So for any of you who know, Cooperstown is home to the Baseball Hall of Fame. So I spend a lot of my time in Cooperstown. I spend most of my holidays in Cooperstown. I went so far as to buy a house next to my parents in Cooperstown so that I could bring my family up to Cooperstown. And so, we're baseball fans and we have the proximity to the Hall of Fame, but I understand what it's like to really love the history and love the tradition and make sure that stuff like that doesn't die. So if you've never been to Cooperstown, you could fit Cooperstown in Canton's stadium, but nonetheless, the people are all of equal passion, and it's really exciting for me to be here. So I'm going to try my best to live up to the standard that Rob set when he was up here 2 weeks ago. Just to kind of further illustrate that he's a better baseball player and copy editor than he is a mental picture painter. I didn't realize that I would be following up a Stark County Golden Boy. So for me, again, I'm trying to do my best to pick up on some of the traditions and we drove through Malone College and we drove through the Hall of Fame. And so again, it's just really nice to be here. This is the first time that I have been in front of a crowd of people since I graduated high school 18 years ago. And at 18, I was 18, and 18 years ago, I spoke in front of my graduating class, and I described what I would say if I had to list my graduating class on eBay. And I chose that topic because I had developed this reputation of being kind of the eBay guy, the eBay kid, the guy who could buy you something because he had an eBay account and he had a PayPal account, or the guy that could tell you how to ship something through the mail. And, I thought it would be appropriate. People associated me with eBay, and I had to kind of encapsulate what this group of 130 kids had going for them, what was going to make them successful in the future, and what was going to make us marketable and make us something that people wanted to buy and invest in. And I probably could have reused that speech if I knew you guys better, but unfortunately I didn't have that luxury. So at the time when I was 18 and I was buying and selling on eBay, I really loved the idea that I could be in my house in upstate New York and I could meet people from California and buy something that I needed for my collection. I got my start as a collector, like many of you probably did at some point in time. And, I might go to a show like Rob described in my hometown of Poughkeepsie, New York, and not find what I needed, but somebody in California would have it. Or I might find something at my show in Poughkeepsie and somebody in Texas might need it. And so you have to kind of go back and remember that this was the late 1990s and the everything at your fingertip mindset and mentality wasn't like what it is today. So those were really novel concepts at the time. And I really enjoyed it. And that's kind of what set me on this path towards doing what I do today. So my origin is probably not too dissimilar from a lot of you in the room. I grew up in a family that loved sports. I grew up in a family that rooted for home teams. We all participated in sports. I played baseball. My sisters played soccer. We all became runners. Everybody in my family has run multiple marathons. So we're just a sports family. And to kind of kickstart that love of baseball, when I was 6 years old, my parents bought me a set of Topps baseball cards. And so I'm 6 years old, and my parents get me this box of Topps baseball cards for my birthday, and I just bring it in my room. And my mom will tell you that I didn't come out for 3 days. And what I was doing was pulling them out and going through them every which way. I'm pulling out my favorite players. I'm alphabetizing them. I'm, putting the rookies of the years together. I'm pulling out the Mets. You have to remember, I'm from New York, but I'm not from the part of New York that fawns over the Yankees. So Mets were my team. Cal Ripken was my guy. And I just really enjoyed doing that. And so my parents very instantly had this gift that I would get for Christmas and birthdays and graduations and communions and, you name it. So that was really something that I was very fortunate to have my parents support me with and really foster my love of baseball, my love of the cards. And it never really waned. Again, when I went into high school, it was something that I kept up with. When I went to college, it was something that I kept up with. And I loved that we had this connection, right? So I would be, again, I started on eBay when I was 13 years old. I did it with my parents' supervision, but I'm 13 years old and I'm buying and selling on eBay. And at the end of the day, I'm able to have a conversation with a 30-year-old or a 50-year-old or a 60-year-old because we're all interested in the same thing. And that was something that was, again, really fascinating to me. I could very confidently have a conversation with somebody about Topps baseball cards because we were speaking the same language. He didn't care where I came from. He didn't care what my work experience was, what my educational experience was. All he cared was, could I finish his set? Or did I have the card that he was looking for? Or, could I flip the cards better than he could, basically? And so baseball cards have always been a very important part of my life. And I'm really thankful for that. If you flash forward now, obviously 2 decades later, much of what I do on a daily basis and much of what my staff of 23 people do on a daily basis is what I was doing back then when I was trying to figure out how to describe my class on eBay. So back then I was counting the number of state champions that we had. I was counting the number of Eagle Scouts that we had. And I was counting the number of accomplishments that our class had. And so now what I'm doing is I'm taking somebody's collection and I'm evaluating their life's work, because a lot of people spend a considerable amount of time gathering items for their collections. And I'm sizing it all up and I'm highlighting the positives and I'm talking about rarity and I'm trying to market this to the world. We have clients in over 24 countries. And some of it is purely international appeal. We have very large collector bases in Asia. We're starting to develop a large collector base in the Middle East. And then we have a lot of just expats around the world. We have people who we ship a catalog into Senegal because we have a foreign service worker that is in the country of Senegal who wants to bid on our auctions. So again, it's very fascinating how this thing that started off on a playground for probably most everybody in here has taken us now global. And that's another thing that really keeps me and my staff, all of whom are collectors, either still or have some sort of background in collecting. It keeps us excited and passionate about what we're doing on a daily basis. And so Rob mentioned some dollar figures in his introduction, and I am personally always a little hesitant to bring it up. You never want to be braggadocious or anything like that. But Rob and I were talking about it, and we thought that those numbers were actually important to paint a picture, because a lot of people don't have any concept that sports cards and memorabilia has evolved into this industry, like Rob was talking about, where, my company does 60 million, but if you look at all the companies that do what we do, if you look at eBay, which is still a very viable global marketplace, there is hundreds of millions, if not low billions of dollars transacted every year of sports cards and memorabilia. And again, most of it's cards. Cards is probably the largest segment of our business and most people's businesses. But you'll have autographs, you'll have jerseys, you'll have programs and tickets and pennants. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can collect. And so, these dollar figures, again, they illustrate the size of the business. And it's funny because a couple of years ago, my dad was catching up with an old friend, and he was asking about me. He says, what's Brian doing these days? And my dad said, oh, he's actually selling baseball cards for a living. And dead serious, the friend goes, oh, I thought he got a college degree. and so, it's really a lot of people just look at this and say, well, I haven't thought about baseball cards since I was 8 years old, or I haven't bought a pack of cards since I needed to get something for my grandkids for Christmas as a stocking stuffer. Packs used to be a penny or a nickel, or maybe a dime, quarter, depending on how old you were. The first pack that I ever bought was $1, which was unheard of. They literally thought the hobby was going to crash because packs had gone up to $1. And now we're talking about people that are coming into this industry and they're spending $5,000, $10,000, $20,000 on packs of cards. So it's really interesting to see how the hobby's matured, evolved, and how people do it for all sorts of different reasons. The crazy thing, too, that I like to talk about when I talk to people about the sports card and memorabilia industry is how these numbers seem large, right? 60 million is not an insignificant number. But when you look at other collecting areas, this actually pales in comparison. And a perfect illustration is art, right? So if anybody in here is familiar with the art market, you may have seen that Christie's, which is an international auction house, just sold the collection of Paul Allen, who was one of the Microsoft founders. They just sold his art collection last week over the course of 2 days. And there were 155 lots. And that collection totaled $1.6 billion. It's amazing. I mean, it's staggering. I follow auctions for a living, and I remember texting Rob as this auction was unfolding and saying, you will not believe what is happening right now, what's transpiring. And we look at these numbers, $15,000 for a Ty Cobb card. Has anybody here ever heard of Georges Seurat? Georges Seurat. Okay, we have one. We have two. We have a couple. All right. Painter. $149.7 million, the highest selling item in that Christie's auction the other day. Up until a few weeks ago, I personally held the record, the world record, if you will, for the most expensive baseball card ever sold. It was $6.6 million, and it was a Honus Wagner. Has anybody here heard of Honus Wagner? Yeah. So you kind of are proving my point right now about sports and its how applicable it is and how it transcends backgrounds and generations and everything. That record, interestingly, was broken a couple weeks ago by a Mickey Mantle card that sold for $12.6 million. I'll ask, just out of curiosity, who here's heard of Mickey Mantle? There you go. So again, just going back to the idea of sports and how I love what I do and how we're very fortunate to have a large clientele that loves what we do and is passionate about what we sell. There's that instant bond that's created, right? You and I may not know anything. We may have grown up in different parts of the country. We may have grown up at different times, but we can talk about Mickey Mantle or Babe Ruth or Jim Brown or Jim Thorpe, and we can have some conversation. We talked about Charles Bidwell half an hour ago. That's something that we formed an instant connection on just because we both knew the ins and outs of that one individual. So I also tell a funny story in that I went to school. I went to Seton Hall University in New Jersey, and I graduated with a degree in finance. And in one of my finance classes, we were doing a report on a company called Ryland Homes. And Ryland Homes was a major home builder in the Maryland area. And they were in the news for making some moves during that time their stock was fluctuating. And the professor says, here's what the leadership's doing. And I raised my hand and I said, I actually know the CEO of Ryland Homes. And he says, you don't, but it's fun that you think you do. And I said, no, I sell them baseball cards. And so here I am, an 18-year-old college freshman sitting in a finance class, telling the professor that if you really want to know what's going on, I could probably get the CEO on the phone. And I would sell him cards, and I could call his office, and I could get his secretary, and I could say, Mary, it's Brian. Can I talk about baseball cards? And I'd get patched right through. And he did that because he knew that I wasn't going to bust his chops. He knew that I wasn't going to ask about earnings. He knew that I wasn't going to ask about, what his plans were and what he thought of the market. He knew that I probably had a card that he needed to finish his set. And again, I go back to how sports and baseball cards and collecting is kind of this unifying thing that I find very interesting. So as Rob said in his introduction, I am president and owner of Robert Edward Auctions, this auction company. And when I tell people that I'm an auctioneer, a lot of them automatically say, well, how fast can you speak? So I try and, okay, well, I'm not standing on a podium with my gavel and my, cowboy hat and calling an auction. I said, these days it's really about how fast can you type. It's not so much about how fast can you speak. Everything in our industry, for the most part, has shifted away from the in-person, and everything that we do is now online. We will sell 50,000 items this year, and we will not see anybody in person. We will do everything online. Occasionally we'll have somebody come in and look at an item, or occasionally we'll sell to somebody local who can come pick it up. But by and large, what we're doing is communicated over the internet. And this catalog that Rob held up, they average about 700 pages. They average, we send out about 10,000 of them an auction. And that's really the only tangible piece of anything that you get from us before you get the item that you win. And so that just, again, speaks to technology and how all these changes have come about in the world and in our business that make it very interesting. And maybe people don't think about, I'm not familiar with the company that Rob mentioned, but it's not uncommon for people to think that I'm standing in a barn and I'm calling an auction. So one of the things that we do, and I'll preface this by saying that we are a sports card and memorabilia auction house. So we specialize in sports cards and memorabilia. Baseball is our bread and butter. We do sell football is our second largest segment, basketball and hockey, non-sports. But Jim and I were talking, one of the things that people don't realize is that we will also branch out into historical and political and entertainment memorabilia, where we find that our clients may have an interest in buying a Superman comic, or they may have an interest in buying an Abraham Lincoln signature. We've sold documents signed by Ben Franklin, George Washington. We've sold handcuffs used by Harry Houdini. We've sold a Superman cape worn by Christopher Reeve. We've sold we sold a screen-used Seinfeld menu, which is a little bit of salt in the wound for Rob. I think he wanted that, but someone else got it. But it's again, we're just trying to find things that are interesting, things that have widespread appeal, things that have crossover appeal, and things that are, household names. Everybody knows who George Washington is for the most part. Everybody knows who Abraham Lincoln is. And we like to keep that catalog interesting for people to go through. You're going to see something that you've absolutely never seen in your life before, didn't realize existed, didn't realize was worth what it's worth. And we do it, obviously, we're in the business to make money, but we do it for education. And we find that our catalogs and our auctions are a great source of education for people in the hobby and out of the hobby. And again, that's just what keeps us moving forward. So one of our specialties, and I'm trying to encapsulate everything that we do in this small window of time, but one of our specialties is dealing with individuals and assisting individuals who are outside of the mainstream hobby. So someone like myself and Rob, we are collectors. We have familiarity with these items. We understand what they're worth. We understand how to best sell them. We've likely purchased them from an auction like REA. And, there's really no risk that we're going to accidentally sell it for pennies on the dollar. But there's a number of people, thousands of people all across this country who stumble across things or find stuff at flea markets or find stuff at a garage sale. And so our specialty, going back to that educational point, is really being a company that these people who do not have the knowledge, do not have the expertise, the background, the connections, the understanding, being a partner for them to come and maximize their value. Obviously, we deal with regular collectors all the time, but we've always carved out a niche for bringing stuff to market for the first time. And so Rob, again, alluded to this in the introduction, which is not uncommon. Rob and I have spent 6 hours together overnight and on the drive up here. And so we threw around a lot of ideas, but the idea of investing in this is really something that has taken hold of the population recently. Some people will tie it directly to the pandemic. Some people will tie it to other forms of speculation, like the rise of sports betting or things to that effect. But we're seeing a lot of people who are coming into this field for the first time, buying items with solely the intention of selling them for a profit down the road. And so that's been a very interesting dynamic, because you have collectors who are setting out to finish a set or complete a collection, competing with people who are doing this purely for investment purposes. And so, we try and cater to both people. Obviously, we want diehard collectors to be in the mix, because generally they're going to pay a bit more because they're passionate, they need it, they want it, they're doing their best to finish a collection. But this rise of the investor has been an interesting dynamic that has brought our market to new heights. I mean, the growth in our business in particular has been quite drastic. The growth in our industry has been quite drastic. And one of the things that has really driven it forward, whether people realize it or not, has been the pandemic. And so obviously the pandemic changed our whole landscape. I mean, it changed absolutely everything that we knew in the blink of an eye. I mean, I had a newborn. I had a 3-week-old when we went into lockdown back in New Jersey. And here I am trying to figure out how to raise a newborn, and trying to figure out how to navigate this global pandemic, and trying to figure out how to keep my employees safe and how to keep my employees employed, because we're not a necessity. Nobody can eat baseball cards. Nobody can clothe themselves in baseball cards. So I was worried that things were going to dry up and that our business was going to be really severely impacted. But what we saw was absolutely the polar opposite. And I think there are a couple reasons for that actually make pretty good sense, in my opinion. So you had people at home with time, right? And you had people at home looking for distractions. The news was full of doom and gloom. People around us were getting sick or passing away, and people wanted distractions. And so they were taking money that they weren't spending on going out to eat. They were taking money that they weren't spending on going on vacation, that they weren't spending on traveling, and they were looking to put it into things to occupy their time. And so we saw unparalleled growth in our customer base during 2020. And that's actually continued as the media has picked up on our hobby, as word spreads about these big sales and what the future for these as investments might be. And so that's been very interesting to watch. The other thing, as I alluded to in the past, was sports betting. When the sports were canceled, there was a period of time where there were no games being played. So if you wanted to get your fix, you had to go back to the past. You had to go back and look at baseball in the past, football in the past, basketball in the past. Who can I collect? What can I refamiliarize myself with that will be interesting and exciting? And so we saw some incredible stuff come out of the woodwork during that period of time, which kind of speaks to what's possible. And I mean, sometimes things hide in plain sight. We had a woman in Altoona, Pennsylvania, who called up and said that her grandfather had died about a decade earlier, but she had never found the time to go through his stuff until she was at home, and she was furloughed from work, and she was at home going through his stuff and found a jewelry box. All right. In his jewelry box was a pile of 24 cards, one of which was a Babe Ruth rookie card. And so she sent me a picture, and I looked at it and I said, God, we see more fakes of this than anything else, but this one looks good. And I asked her questions and she had all the right answers. And so I drove out to a Panera Bread in Western Pennsylvania, and we met in the parking lot, and we had a socially distanced review of her cards, and it turned out to be real. And it was creased probably 30 times, and it was dirty and soiled, but we sold it for $342,000. So a good example, if you will, of hiding in plain sight, and something that we have collectors for who are looking to spend real money, $342,000, very significant, on these collectibles. And so we also had a family in Chicago who found their grandfather's banker's boxes of documents. He was an executive with the Chicago Cubs in the 1930s, and we hauled off 24 banker's boxes full of contracts, photographs, tickets, payroll checks, you name it. Right now, we're approaching $875,000 worth of stuff. The grandfather retired in 1986, but they didn't look in there until 2020. So again, the pandemic, incredibly life-altering for many people, but stuff's out there and stuff's hiding in plain sight. And so obviously not everybody is going to stumble across stuff, or not everybody can be related to a sports executive. But I think people are constantly surprised by what's collectible and what's not. And so, we have a lot of examples of people out there finding stuff at garage sales and finding stuff at flea markets. And it's especially prevalent in these old towns that have a rich sports history. So Cleveland, Detroit, Philadelphia, Boston. We've had some great League Park items turn up. We've had some great Cleveland Stadium items turn up. We had a Jim Brown jersey that had been sitting in the top drawer of a dresser from a Cleveland Stadium groundskeeper for over 50 years until he got it out and said, I kind of remember getting this from Jim Brown, but can you tell me if it's the real thing? And it was. So, that type of stuff, that stuff that's really rare, ties back directly to a player. That's the stuff that's valuable. What's not valuable is the stuff that's produced as a collectible. And that's really what I try and remind people. Your Hess trucks, your Beanie Babies, your Cabbage Patch Kids, that's the stuff that was forced down your throat as a collectible. Buy it now, it's going to be worth more money in the future. That really hasn't held its value. It's the stuff that nobody ever expected to be valuable that's worth a lot of money. And so the Honus Wagner card that we sold, the Mickey Mantle card that broke that record, those were from a time where nobody expected baseball cards to be worth anything. And that's why they're valuable. Each of those happened to be in particularly strong condition. The Wagner card was a 3 on a scale of 10, which is very good for cards from that era, 1910. The Mantle was a 9.5 out of 10 from 1952, pretty incredible condition. There's 3 10s out there of the Mantle card, in case anybody's curious. And I would offer a $30 million bounty if you can find me one. So that just tells you. Put that in the newsletter. So, yeah, big business here. I guess now's a good time. I'm just looking at the clock, and I got about 10 minutes left. I want to make sure I'm kind of expecting, maybe wrongfully, that there might be a question or two. I got to take her over here. Red vest in the back.
Do you buy these collectibles and then resell them, or do you take them on consignment and give the person a percentage, or you take a percentage?
Yeah, no, tremendous question. So I often describe myself as a realtor for baseball cards and memorabilia. I'm not buying the inventory. What I'm doing is collecting a service fee. I'm accepting it on consignment, and you are utilizing my network, my connections, my marketing prowess, my knowledge, my expertise to realize you the most money. And so we're a fee-based business, and we partner with our clients on the sell side as opposed to coming out and buying the material. So everything that we've been tasked with selling is generally on consignment. Other red vest in the middle here.
Authenticity, how big an issue is that?
Tremendously big issue. So fraud obviously is abound in the industry. So you have nefarious fraud where people are willfully trying to deceive. And then you have, harmless fraud, if such a thing exists, where something was made as a fantasy piece, but got passed down. I can't tell you how many times we've seen stuff. Well, my grandfather had it. Your grandfather very likely did have it in the 70s, but they were already making fakes back in the 70s. And it wasn't intended to deceive when it was made, but something got lost in translation over time to now you think it's real. So the vetting of these items, be it an autograph or a card, is extremely important. And then with respect to cards, that 10-point grading scale, that's really what defines value in our industry. Right here.
What's your percentage?
To handle a sale.
For a sale.
So it varies. Everything that we do is on a tiered structure, generally based on value. It takes us, based on value and type of material. So it takes us a lot longer to process a group of 15,000 index cards that are signed by players from all over the country than it does to take a picture of one Mickey Mantle card. So we make anywhere from 15% right on down to we don't make anything on the sale from the buyer, or excuse me, from the seller, but we'll make money from the buyer, which is standard in the industry. So it's a tiered system. Right here, Blue.
Yeah, I've got a couple of baseball cards my wife's been after me to get rid of. How can we get together?
There you go. Wives are generally my best employees. So I'd be a poor businessman if I didn't have a business card in my pocket. So I'll be sure to hand you one when I'm on my way out. And then that catalog that Rob held up, we send those out for free. So if you're curious about seeing what we do, we've got an auction starting this week on Friday. We can get your name on a mailing list, and we can send you a catalog. And if you have anything that you want to have appraised, I mean, we do no strings attached appraisals all day, every day. So we're out there looking for the diamond in the rough, just like you guys are, and we never know what's going to be on the other side of that phone. So we pick up every call.
I don't have a rookie mantle card, but I've got a couple, like a sophomore, maybe junior or something. As far as that goes, but are those worth anything nowadays?
Yeah, so Mantle is on the Mount Rushmore of baseball card collecting. I mean, there's pretty much nothing that has Mantle's name attached to it that doesn't have some value. The value drops off after you get away from the rookie. I mean, there's this tremendous significance placed on players' rookie cards these days. But yeah, there's collectors for everything. Everything has some sort of value. It's just a question of, is it hundreds of dollars, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars? But again, that's the type of thing with a couple pictures, we can tell you very quickly what you'd be looking at.
I have one football, Jim Brown.
On Mount Rushmore football cards. So. Straight back.
If somebody personally wants to sell now with tax ramifications, how do you place a value on something you got 4 years ago and you don't have no idea what you're paying?
Yeah, so I will preface this in the way that I often do, where I'm the furthest thing from a tax professional. I took a couple tax and accounting classes at Seton Hall, but I always preface this by speak to your CPA. What we do generally is we do good faith appraisals for people where we can go back and we can reference price guides from, say, 1980 and say, in 1980, this Mickey Mantle card was valued at $50, or this Mickey Mantle card was valued at $100. What we find is a lot of people that open these cards out of packs or bought them 40, 50 years ago ultimately have a negligible cost basis. So it's really hard to get away from a significant gain, but we can give you some sort of insight into what it might have been worth a long time ago.
I've got at home an old zipper tape, if it's worth anything. My dad brought it home in 1948. It said, before the Boston Braves game, a moment of silence was held in honor of George Herman Ruth passing away that day.
That's pretty cool. I mean, I'm not familiar with it, but again, Ruth, like Mantle, anything that his name's attached to has some value. So we have people who, my personal specialty is baseball cards and trading cards, but I have a staff that specializes in memorabilia and esoteric items. So, if you wanted to dig into that a little deeper, we could have that looked at for you.
What does a player's involvement scandal do to a card? Does it decrease the value or increase the value?
So it depends. I mean, I always tell people what drew me to vintage as a professional. And when I say vintage, the Mantles, the Ruths, Babe Ruth's not going to wake up tomorrow and get a DUI. Babe Ruth's not going to tear his ACL, And so that's something that's a very real consideration, frankly, when you talk about these modern players. So my gut reaction, if I had to speak in broad terms, would be that scandal generally decreases the value of a card. But then you have somebody like Joe Jackson, who scandal plagued, and his cards are worth a ton. So there's exceptions to every rule, but by and large, they're going to decrease the value. I think I've missed you 5 times.
Yeah, okay. Well, just 2 things. I don't know if you're aware of it. At the Hall of Fame, we had the Hunt Caster line. And it was marvelous. We had it for 2 years, maybe set up 700 and cards, like a $4 million.
We sold some of them. We sold some of the cards for that display. Yeah.
My question is, talk about a card for having a signature or no signature.
Yeah, so that's actually very interesting as well, because that's something where the calculus has totally changed recently. So it used to be that if you put a signature on a card, blasphemous, it was going to decrease the value significantly. People now have said, you know what, these players, they're not getting any younger. These players, again, rookie cards, like we talked about, they're of great significance. If you combine a signature and a rookie card, you've got this ultimate collectible. So I would say that a well-executed signature on a significant card nowadays is generally adding value to it, whereas 10 years ago, again, blasphemy if you put a pen on a card. So I think, generally speaking, it's a positive. Straight back.
Story about cards that were turned in and were started on a bicycle,
I missed the last part.
Yeah, value.
Oh yeah. I mean, so everything we sold. So I'll give you one card we sold and one card that another auction company sold. So we sold a Mickey Mantle card that had been through a washer machine for $19,000. So yes, it can have value. Another company sold a Honus Wagner where 62% of the card was present. They sold it for $520,000. It literally looked like a mouse had eaten the side of it. So yes, everything does have some value.
Baseball, how about baseball?
Signed baseballs?
Yes.
Yeah. So signed baseballs, very popular collecting, always going to come down to who's on it. And the thing with baseballs is back in the day, they used to have the clubhouse attendants sign some of the, particularly the stars, like a Mickey Mantle or Jackie Robinson, Roy Campanella. So you'd want to have it authenticated to the earlier question, make sure that it's all legitimate. And then depending on who's on there and depending on the significance, 48 Indians is going to be a good ball and 61 Yankees is going to be a good ball. The value is dictated by that.
How much for Rob's card?
So Rob's cards are considered the Cleveland Brown tickets of baseball. I have to get one zinger. All right, I'm being told last question.
Is Bob Color's baseball worth anything?
So funny story about Bob Feller. It is said that the rarest piece of Bob Feller memorabilia is something that he didn't sign. So Bob Feller is, you know, a sentimental favorite, but usually trading in the $10 range, unfortunately. All right, so I'm being told that that's it. I appreciate everybody's
Again, get your tickets for next week.